All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for braving the elements to be with us here today. We've got a very exciting announcement that's been a long time coming, a record-breaking announcement, as our president likes to say. And to tell you more, I'd like to introduce our president, Dr. Kim Schatzel.
Thank you, John, and good morning, everybody. I want to thank you also for being here this morning, and we do indeed have historic news to share today about the University of Louisville. News that advances our position and also advances our impact as a premier national research institution, and one that deeply impacts the future of healthcare in Kentucky as well as beyond. As I've said, UofL is indeed a national research powerhouse. Our scientists create knowledge and innovations that improve and save lives. The announcement that we're making this morning will have a transformational impact, a historic impact, as John pointed out, and it's something that I love to say, on clinical research both here at the University of Louisville and on the health of all Kentuckians. And that's right, I said all Kentuckians. UofL has secured $24 million in funding to launch the University of Louisville Clinical and Translational Research Center, a statewide initiative that will work to translate scientific research into real-world solutions that will combat and provide cures for chronic diseases, leading causes of death and sickness in Kentucky: heart disease, stroke, and cancer. Chronic diseases that disproportionately impact Kentuckians in urban and rural areas. You see, heart disease, stroke, and cancer, they don't care where you live. UofL's Clinical and Translational Research Center, a world-class center in every single way, will expand clinical infrastructure and tools, fund community-based research projects, and importantly, increase the university's and Kentucky's capacity and access to clinical trials. Access to leading world-class treatment right here in Kentucky. Right here for all of Kentucky's families, whether you live in West Louisville, whether you live in Johnson County or Barron County, all Kentuckians will be impacted. The funding for this world-class center includes $12 million from the National Institutes of Health, matched dollar for dollar by the University of Louisville, and it marks the single largest investment in clinical research infrastructure in our university's history. I want to say that one more time. The single largest investment in clinical research in the university's history, and advances this university and this most important work to national and global prominence. The University of Louisville has a historic and deep commitment to improve the lives of Kentuckians, and this world-class facility, well, it's already a deep commitment, and it even furthers it. And I am so proud to be here today to share this absolutely fantastic news. In just a few minutes, you'll hear from Dr. John Klein, who heads up the university's efforts in research and innovation, and also will lead the center. Dr. Klein and his team are the reason that this center has been realized here today. They have worked tirelessly with great persistence to make this funding and make this center happen right here today. And I am so honored to work with such brilliant and dedicated colleagues and so proud of what they have achieved. But before we hear from Dr. Klein, I'd like to share with you a video that I think captures the journey to get to this day and the impact that we believe that this bold new effort will realize.
Research is a process that takes a long time. I was actually recruited here as part of Bucks for Brains in 2000 with the goal of getting a grant called the GCRC, a General Clinical Research Center.
He wrote a grant that was actually fundable, and unfortunately the NIH stopped that program the next year. A few years later, the NIH created Clinical Translational Science Awards, and we competed for those over a span of 6 years.
We were never able to ultimately get the big grant.
It was kind of a heartbreak. A few years go by and the NIH creates the clinical translational research centers for idea states to increase their research capacity.
What we did this time, we really put the best people together. They're young, they're energetic, they're enthusiastic, they want to do great things. And I think really the team together made this a success.
We were all texting one another when the email dropped into the box. It was a moment of tremendous excitement.
I think the first feeling I got is really anxiety. I just didn't know what to say. I mean, this is the excitement. Really, I think more a sense of a responsibility.
I was absolutely thrilled for the institution. This was a long journey to get this grant.
This is a big deal. This is probably the biggest deal for school medicine in the last 20 years.
It's really been almost a 20-year process until we ultimately get this award. So this shows the importance of perseverance.
I got a little emotional, and then I let my family know because they knew how hard I had worked on this. I think it was just one of those moments of quiet triumph.
Pretty okay, huh? Yeah. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. John Klein.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here today. I still get emotional when I think about that day. It's easy to do. When you work on a project, as long as Craig and Jaipeng and this entire team has worked on this project, when you finally see it come to success and to fruition, it's understandably, even though you're scientists and your objective as scientists should be, it's an intensely emotional experience when it happens. So I want to thank everyone who worked on the team and brought us to this day. So what can you do with $24 million? Well, the answer is we hope to do a great deal, and a great deal to change the lives not only of the communities around us, but also of the culture in the faculty and in this university. So I want to tell you a little bit about the structure of the grant so that you understand that, first of all, it's very novel in its structure. It's unique to Louisville and to Kentucky and in some ways to the region. The grant is divided into a series of cores that manage it. The administrative core is very unique. It's the first grant. I've written grants since 1996. Yeah, that long. And it's the first grant where I ever had a chief operating officer and a chief financial officer. But the fact is that when you're administering $24 million over a 5-year period, you need a new structure. You need new ways of thinking because it's a very ambitious proposal. The second core we have is our health research core, and you'll hear more about that later on from Dr. McLean, who really is sort of the founding father of this effort. He came here 21 years ago to develop something like this and then fought through the years to help us get that. And I'm particularly grateful to Craig for his efforts. But the Health Research Corps has a series of grants, both developmental and pilot, that'll be available to all university faculty. And we've already had the first round of pre-proposals. We've hit the ground running. We're going to be giving these grants out in the very near future. And then probably the most important core in my mind is our community engagement and outreach core. Academic medical centers have had a track record of in some ways, of not listening carefully to communities. That's led to some real tragedies and a lack of progress. So one of the things the NIH is very focused on is the creation of a relationship between the communities that we serve as a university and the university itself. And so our Community Engagement and Outreach Core, which is headed up by Dr. Kelly Bullard-Dunn and Dr. Lucrece Kidd, I believe Kelly's here today, is an essential part of what we do. In this building over 2 months ago, we began the process of meeting with the community in the west and the south end of Louisville and to begin to identify people who will be our external advisory board from the community leaders, everyday people. Ultimately, that dialogue, that conversation with the West End and the South End and Owensboro, so that we have a footprint in a rural area, will lead to the development of what we call citizen scientists. Now, we're not just going to listen to these communities. We're going to identify people who have ideas and want those ideas to be studied by scientists at the University of Louisville. And then finally, we have a professional development corps. Craig will elaborate on this in a bit, but one of the most crying needs in medical science and science in general is to develop the next generation of clinician scientists, physician scientists, and surgeon scientists. This is something the NIH is really focused on. People who see patients, treat patients, who are compassionate doctors, and then go back to the laboratory or go to the clinical trials unit and conduct clinical trials. We don't have enough of those people, and so the Professional Development Corps is highly focused on that. Now, one of the programs that we've rolled out already, and as I said, we've hit the ground running, this grant is gaining momentum every day, is our Presidential Scholars Program. And I want everyone to understand that, first of all, this is the part of the grant that's nearest to my heart, because this is the way that we develop the clinician, physician, surgeon, scientists of the future. So what we're going to be doing is awarding 3 of those today. The Presidential Scholarship allows young faculty members to pursue their scholarship and creative activity in their research focused on clinical and translational research without the demands for 1 year of either their teaching load or their clinical load. Now, this is kind of a revolutionary concept in this institution that we're able to do this now. And we're going to nurture these people. They get 1 year of funding and the opportunity for a second year. So they have 2 years to focus on building their science, building their clinical and translational research. So I want to announce the first 3 today, 2 of whom are with us today. The first person I'd like to recognize, and please, after I've announced everyone, please stand, and a little bit embarrassing, but it's just fine. You've totally earned this, people. So the first person is Dr. Arina Vanjula, who's an assistant professor of psychology and brain sciences. Arina's lead mentor is Dr. Sherry Levinson, and they are in the School of Arts and Sciences, and an absolute powerhouse of research into what we could call eating disorders. And just parenthetically, the greatest amount of NIH funding in a single research group in this university is in that group. So they have a tremendous foundation to build on, and we're incredibly proud of them. The second person I want to recognize today is Dr. Akshit Kumar Mistry. Dr. Mistry is in the back there. Dr. Mistry is a neurosurgeon. His mentor is Dr. Jason Chesney, the director of the Brown Cancer Center, who's standing right there. Dr. Kumar is interested in really turning the world upside down on how we treat tumors in the brain. He's an original thinker, and his project, we have high hopes for his project as well. But to have a surgeon focus on their research, I can assure you, is a revolutionary act in this institution and most institutions around us. It's a really positive development in our culture. And then finally, last but not least, is Dr. Christy Bonpan. Dr. Bonpan had the good sense to be in Mexico today, so she can't join us, but she is a pediatric surgeon, another surgeon who is going to have time to focus on her research and to develop her interests for at least 1 year. So in sum, what this is a very large effort that will touch lives across the Commonwealth, but just as importantly, it's a culture change within the way we do clinical research that will expand the size of our clinical trials unit. It's going to double that. It's going to develop tools to train people to be scientists, both faculty members with doctoral degrees as well as citizens. And ultimately, what we hope to do is bend that curve that the president mentioned, the epidemic of cancer and vascular disease that's truly a plague on the Commonwealth. So we hope to have an impact on that. We think we will. And thank you very much. I want to turn now to the Deputy Director, Program Director, Dr. Jai-Peng Wang.
All right. Thank you, John, and thank you all for being here today. I'm just so proud and also very emotional for this too. And this is probably the biggest thing I ever done. I'm, really be happy to be here today. And I think that this grant, the funding that we got, will really make research transformative at the University of Louisville. Not only for the researchers, but also for the community, Louisville, Owensboro, really across the states. We have several exciting programs, and the first program is if you want to do research, you need money. So we actually will provide a series of 75,000 to 125,000 research grants for researchers. So there's pilot projects and development projects from the Health Research Corps, directed by Dr. Klein, Dr. McLean. And we also have professional development grants for people, for researchers. We have Dean Scholars. This is very new. Thank you, Dean Bumpus. So we actually will fund the medical students to do 1 year research, fully paid. And when I first heard this idea, I said, will the medical student be interested? Actually, they are. If you want to get into a competitive specialty now, you need to do research. And they are very excited. We have a lot of people lining up for it. And we also have the President's Scholar that just announced it. Thank you, President Shessel, for your support. And what that will allow them to do will buy 50% of their clinical time and teaching time so they can focus on the research. And we believe those are extremely critical for those. We want to develop the next generation of clinical researchers who can not only secure more NIH funding, but also we want them to develop new technologies, new therapies, groundbreaking clinical trials in Louisville, in Kentucky, for us. The LCTRC will also work to build the infrastructures. So sometimes you get research funding, but it does not buy you equipment, does not buy you research staff. So we want to build the infrastructures and research tools at UofL and UofL Health and other healthcare systems. So we are developing a deeper relationship with UofL Health, the VA Medical Center, Owensboro Health, Norton, and many other healthcare systems. We are going to double the clinical trial staff, and we are developing and looking into how to streamlining the research process for UofL and UofL Health. And as John mentioned, this funding will also promote citizen science. So you really don't need a lab coat or a PhD or MD to do research. You can be a citizen, you can be regular people, and you have idea, and you're the one who living through those issues, right? You're the one having a heart problem. You tell us what you want us to do, and then we'll provide you with support, with funding, and with the academic experts to help you to do research. And I think that I really like the word that John actually used to describe this funding and this project is transformative. We're going to transform the culture of doing research, especially clinical research and translational research at UofL and UofL Health. And I want to thank you all for being here, and we're really excited. I think there are many, many new exciting projects coming from this. Thank you. So next, I would like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Craig McLean, who has been really instrumental in securing this funding. Thank you all.
It's a real pleasure to be here today. This has been a long process. Our previous speakers talked about how important this grant is to the university, to our health partners, and the community. I want to briefly focus on one aspect of this grant, which is clinician scientists, and specifically physician scientists. I'm a physician scientist. I'm an endangered species. All physician scientists are. So if you look over the past quarter of a century, every year there's been a decrease in the relative number of physician scientists funded by the NIH. Only 2% of physicians have research in their work plan across the country. Dr. Klein, Dr. Wong, myself, we're all physician scientists, so you may think there's a lot of physician scientists at the University of Louisville. Actually, there are less than a dozen that have NIH-funded research on which they're the principal investigator. When I've talked to the directors, the past two directors of the NIH, they say the thing that keeps them up at night the most is this decrease in physician scientists and a lack of a good plan to fix this problem. Now, one of the reasons that this is a problem is the age at which a physician scientist gets their first grant, which is age 46. So there has to be some type of support between when you join the faculty and you get your first grant. And that's what this particular grant does. It's exciting to hear that we've already funded 3 investigators. So this grant will fund about 8 to 10 investigators every year and give them the ability to move to that period of time, age 46, when they get their first NIH grant. So this grant really gives us the resources to develop our next generation of physician scientists. And with the announcement today, it sounds like we're well on that pathway. I'd like to also end by thanking Dr. Schatzel for her support in this grant. So as Dr. Klein mentioned, we've gone in with several other grants, and one of the biggest problems in not getting funded was lack of institutional support, and Dr. Schatzel's provided that this time. So thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. How about another hand for John Klein and his amazing team? This is quite a day for the university.